So about 6 months ago, I released a video called Stunned is Broken, where I discussed at length both the design and the implementation of the stunned condition in Dungeons & Dragons. Train Monk even recommended the video during one of his, definitely a highlight of my YouTube career. I'll link the video in the end cards, but the gist of it was that the stun condition, while extremely powerful in what it does, is actually quite problematic for the game, not because of what it does, but because there is essentially no reliable or accessible way to end the effects of the condition on either yourself or a party member. This can lead to some potentially debilitating results where even extremely high-level characters, despite their immense power, can largely be sidelined by a single bad roll. This actually happened in my campaign where a few months ago, 2 members of my 19th level party at the time were stunned by a pair of intellect devourers, which nearly resulted in an extremely unexpected TPK. Those are CR2 creatures. They survive though, however the same kinds of things can happen, but even worse with the existence of spells like Psychic Scream or any of the other plethora of ways of creatures stunning their targets. Fortunately, at least, Psychic Scream did not make its way from Xanathar's into the new PHP. I am officially very much in the home stretch with less than 1,000 subscribers to go before hitting the 10,000 mark before the 2024 Player's Handbook officially releases on September 17th. I've got some very fun things in the works for a celebration event, so if you like what I do and want to help me on this journey, a sub to the channel would really mean a lot. Thank you so much. Anyway, with all that said, I have been eagerly awaiting the release of the 2024 Player's Handbook to see what might be done to make the impact of the stun condition less debilitating to players. And on the plus side, they did do something, but counterpoint, what they did doesn't really make any sense. So join me down the wild rabbit hole that is the stun condition in 5th edition. Let's quickly discuss where we're coming from to understand the context that brought about the changes to the condition in 2024. Stunned in 2014 was a brutal effect to subject a character to. So we're all on the same page, the effect of the stun condition was as follows. A stunned creature is incapacitated, it can't move, and can speak only falteringly. The creature automatically fails strength and dexterity saving throws, and attack rolls against the creature have advantage. And for reference, the incapacitated condition states that you can't take actions or reactions, which to further clarify also means that you couldn't take any bonus action, as the rules also specify that if something deprives you of your action, it also deprives you of your bonus action. This rule though is needlessly buried, but it is there. So if you get stunned, you essentially can't do anything. For all intents and purposes, you are largely just sitting the game out until the condition ends, which hopefully it can. Now, if you haven't seen my previous video about stun, or if you just need a refresher because you aren't watching it daily for some reason, hearing me say how savage stun is might sound odd since the paralyzed condition is literally the same thing, except that it's worse since with paralyzed, any attack that hits a creature is a critical hit if the attacker is within 5 feet of the paralyzed creature. The difference though is that there is a whole lot more that you can do about being paralyzed than you can about being stunned. A simple 2nd level Lesser Restoration ends paralyzed, as does Greater Restoration. Freedom of movement can allow you to preemptively prevent the condition. There's like 100 items that can either prevent entirely or give advantage on saves against paralyzed, like the Ring of Free Action, the Elixir of Health, or the Bracers of Celerity. The point that I'm trying to make is that there are myriad ways to end the paralyzed condition on yourself or for a party member, and it isn't even particularly challenging. Which, for the record, is fine. Every condition in the game should have some degree of counterplay. Just getting hit with a debilitating condition and not being able to do anything about it isn't exactly fun and interactive. And to be clear, I'm also talking about a simple function of time here. And then there's stunned. At the time of writing, as far as 2014 Dungeons & Dragons goes, there is exactly one spell that can end the stun condition, and that is 9th level Power Word Heal, which is only on the Bard spell list too. Aura of Purity on the Paladins list can provide advantage on a saving throw against a condition, and the 6th level Way of Mercy Monk's Physician's Touch feature can end it as well. These are some very specific parameters. Beyond this though, there are some magic items which can help, but they're also so insanely specific they're barely even worth mentioning. The Witchlight Vein from the Wild Beyond the Witchlight, which is a legendary item, makes you immune to stunned, among other things. And then there's the Staff of the Forgotten Ones from Tomb of Annihilation, which is an artifact item, which also makes you immune to the condition. But again, these are a legendary and artifact item. If you're not playing in Witchlight or a TOA campaign, odds are you probably aren't even considering including either of them. Most recently though, in Phandelver and below, a new potion was added called the Potion of Psionic Fortitude, which allows you to end the condition on yourself, but it's worth mentioning that this book was released in September of 2023, nearly a full decade after the initial release of 5e. That's how long it took to get an official potion to end the condition. Let that sink in. Suffice it to say that dealing with stunned in 2014 D&D has always been something of a nightmare, and this is what brings us to now with the 2024 update. Throughout the Unearthed Arcana process, we saw very little use of the stunned condition. The Monk's Stunning Strike feature was changed a few times, and the Monk itself was even very delayed in appearing in the UA, which I thought might have been related to the condition. More importantly though, we also saw the introduction of a new condition, Dazed, which deprived you of your bonus action and reaction and forced you to decide between moving or taking an action on your turn, not both. This was even present in the playtest until UA 8, the very last one, and I thought there was a reasonable chance that Stunned as a condition would be replaced with Dazed, and the 2024 books would simply have contained conversion text to say, if you're using 2014 content anywhere the word Stunned appears, treat it as Dazed. This wouldn't even have been a unique solution, as a few things have changed names, like Mobile has changed to Speedy and the Feeble Mind spell has changed to Befuddlement. This, however, is not what happened at all. Instead, the Dazed condition seems to have been cut entirely from 2024 D&D, and the Stun condition has been changed and seemingly makes very little sense now. Let's look at the new version. The exact text of Stun in the 2024 Player's Handbook reads as follows. While you have the Stun condition, you experience the following effects. Incapacitated, you have the Incapacitated condition. Saving throws affected, you automatically fail Strength and Dexterity saving throws. Attacks affected, attack rolls against you have advantage. Since it cross-references the Incapacitated condition, here's what that says. While you have the Incapacitated condition, you experience the following effects. Inactive, you can't take any action, bonus action, or reaction. No concentration, your concentration is broken. Speechless, you can't speak. Surprised, if you're incapacitated when you roll initiative, you have disadvantage on the roll. So, did you catch it? I mean, you probably did, since I'm almost certainly not the first person you've heard talking about this, but yeah, as far as the rules are concerned in 2024, the stun condition has absolutely no impact on your movement whatsoever. This is so bizarre to me for multiple reasons. Firstly, in most cases, the game tries to go out of their way to use natural language and have words that mean what you expect them to mean. Obviously, this gets complicated when there's rules on top of rules from books that were written years after the text that they're basing things off of, but generally speaking, that's what the design team goes for, and now, as far as the new condition goes, I don't think stunned means what they think it means. I don't think I'd be alone in assuming that being stunned would represent some complete inability to act, including movement. You're stunned. So now I'm in this weird spot where on the one hand, I guess I'm happy that stunned isn't quite as brutal in one sense as it was in 2014, but now I feel like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense from a design perspective. But beyond the natural language question, another big part of this refers back to the Monk's feature, Stunning Strike. In UA8, we saw the design team make an effort to address the inherent all or nothing nature of Stunning Strike. They made it so that on a failed save, the creature would suffer the effects of the stun condition, but on a successful save, they would take damage equal to a roll of your martial arts die plus your wisdom modifier. This was certainly an interesting and unique change. I'm not sure that there are any other effects in the game that deal damage on a successful save, but not on a failed one. That said, I don't think it's a stretch to say that stunned is way more of a brutal effect to be under than taking a little bit of damage. But this choice still introduced some significant asymmetry into the typical saving throw formula. Interestingly, that asymmetry still exists in the published version of Stunning Strike in the 2024 PHB. Now, on a failed save, the creature is still under the effect of the stun condition until the start of your next turn. But on a successful save, their movement speed is reduced by half, and the next attack roll against them has advantage until the start of your next turn. This brings us to that weird place again where the success or failure of the saving throw has essentially nothing to do with each other. Typically, we see things like full damage on a successful save or half as much on a failed one, or an all or nothing save. But this is just so out of left field for the game that it does stick out like a sore thumb. Also, if it weren't for the advantage on the next attack in the event of a failed save, there would be literally no overlap between the two results. The impact of the stun condition is now just sitting in something of a strange spot. It makes it so that you can do nothing at all except move. No actions, no bonus actions, no reactions, no spell concentration, nothing. All you can do now is run away, and not even particularly quickly at that, since you can't use the dash action. And attacks against you have advantage, so while you're slowly running away, any ranged attacker or melee combatant that has the same speed as you can just continually attack you with advantage. This is so weird, I don't get it. It's like the only thing it doesn't do is what I would have expected it to do, to stun you, to keep you in place. So what's the deal? What's going on? The fact that succeeding on a stunning strike has an impact to your movement speed implies that being stunned is related to your ability to move, to reference my point from earlier. And this shows that the design team acknowledges that. Was there a mistake? Was stun supposed to have an impact on movement speed, or was this an intentional omission? I'm inclined to believe that this was fully intentional and not just an error. While I obviously don't know, and I'm largely speculating, I have some thoughts as to why I believe this to be the case. Firstly, the paralyzed condition does contain a text reference to the fact that your speed is 0. The fact that the text was there in both conditions in 2014 and received 0 changes throughout the UA and is now suddenly missing, it doesn't suggest that this was simply forgotten, but rather that it was removed. Secondly, the team was experimenting heavily with the dazed condition throughout the UA, which, though ultimately abandoned, may have had an impact on their perception of stunned. Third, they also did change the effect of the spell Power Word Stun to say that if a creature has 150 hit points or less, it suffers the effect of the stun condition, otherwise its speed is set to 0. Now, I suppose they could have just made this change so an 8th level spell doesn't feel like a complete waste if the target's hit point total was too high, but it really does feel to me like an intentional decision here. It just feels like too much of a coincidence that on 2 effects causing the stun condition, that the lesser effect of both would be an impairment to movement speed when that wasn't the case with either of them before. Next, I think it comes down to differentiating it more from paralyzed and methods of removal. Now, I should be clear that stunned isn't strictly less bad than it was in 2014. Now it provides disadvantage on initiative and makes it so you can't speak at all rather than falteringly. None of these were the case in 2014, but in 2014 you couldn't move, so you'd essentially just be a sitting duck waiting to die or break free of it somehow. Now though, it's just confusing. But believe me, I hear the irony. I've spent the better part of 2 videos now talking about how brutal the stun condition is, and here I am wishing for it to hit harder in 2024? Yeah, I guess? Remember though, I was never all that mad about the power of the condition. It was always about the fact that it's next to impossible to get rid of it. So let's address the last reason why I think the change wasn't a mistake. Removal. Did the team provide any additional ways of removing stunned? The short answer is no. The longer answer is also no, but I do think there's a tiny bit of nuance. Given that they created exactly no new ways that I've been able to identify at least of removing or even preempting the condition, I have to believe that they think because it no longer restricts your movement, that it makes it both sufficiently different from paralyzed and not so debilitating that it required any additional remediation options. You can now slowly saunter behind full cover if possible and try to repeat a save, maybe? Of course though, there's always just the chance that I'm completely wrong about all of this and that it was a mistake. I guess we'll see if there's an errata once the book is officially released. That would be kind of amusing though, given that the entire purpose of the 2024 books was essentially to be one massive errata. In any case, I don't think this was a mistake. I feel like it was an intentional decision, but I'm happy to be wrong. Let me know in the comments what you think about the new stun condition, and be sure to subscribe to help me reach my goal of 10k by September 17th. Check out some of my other D&D videos, but otherwise, take care.